Well, hello and good day to you all, wherever you are in the world. I hope you are well. I hope you're thriving, and I hope you are succeeding in these crypto markets. So, I'm Mark, and I run a group on Telegram called Sniper Squad, which is a group where we have hundreds of members and we deliver educational content and try and help people, no matter what their starting point, help them learn how to trade. So for some people who've been in the group, they've never opened an exchange, they've never placed a trade. Some people have placed trades, some people have followed signals but don't know how to do their own technical analysis. And what we set up within Hybrid Wales was Sniper Squad, so that no matter where people are at, no matter in their trading journey, no matter how much of a novice they are, no matter how much they don't know, how much or how little they know, they'll be able to come in there and learn to make money for themselves, regardless of market conditions. Because whether it's a bull market, whether it's a bear market, and whether it goes sideways, there's always opportunities. And if you were like me when I got into crypto, I was just a spot buyer. I just bought, held, hoped it went to the moon, and that works well in a bull market. But as we've probably experienced in recent weeks and months, the bull market isn't always underway. And it's at times like that we need to be able to master trading to be able to make money regardless of what the market does. So I'll tell you a bit more about Sniper Squad at the end of this stream. I've had a lot going on lately. I've moved into a new house, massive transitional period. Today's the first day that I've actually got broadband internet. So here I am on YouTube. Hopefully this stream goes out live. If anyone's watching, can you just let me know that you can see and you can hear me? And with that, I want to dig into the charts because I've been quite inactive in terms of the charts because of personal responsibilities, family, and like I said, moving into a new house. So I've been inactive for the last few weeks. But in Sniper Squad, normally I'd give market updates, market overviews, show high probability reaction zones, show where Bitcoin may well go to, and if it doesn't go there, then it'll go here, and if this happens, then that'll happen, and if that happens, then this'll happen, because nobody truly knows with 100% degree of certainty that this is where Bitcoin is going to go, and this is where it's going to reject from. All we can do as traders is play probabilities, which means there is a high probability that if it enters this zone, then it's going to reject. However, if it doesn't reject at this zone, then it breaks through and it holds it, then this level becomes active. So Bitcoin's either gaining a level or losing a level. Understanding the market structure, market cycle, technical analysis, high probability reaction zones put us in a good position to be able to position our dollars in a way where they are going to be profitable, because the markets are treacherous. If you've been around trading for any period of time, you've probably experienced how volatile they are, how your trade can be doing really well and then all of a sudden there's a liquidation event, there's flash crashes, there's random pumps out of nowhere, and ultimately we cannot control the markets. All we can control is us, our trade, our risk management, our position sizing, and we control the parameters for which we enter a trade. So that being said, it's all about playing the game of probabilities. So I've not been active of late. However, that is going to change. I'll be doing regular streams on YouTube. I'll be doing some live trading on YouTube, but most of the alpha will be going in the private group on Telegram. So if you are interested in joining that, look, I'll put a link in the description down below, or look on Telegram for Hybrid Spartan Sniper and send me a message and I'll get you. It's free access into Sniper Squad. But a lot of what's happened in the charts, particularly the latest move and the recent low, was all predicted as the highest probability path quite a while ago, and I'm talking a couple of months. So if you were in Sniper Squad and you were following diligently and you were copying the technical analysis and you were learning from us in Sniper Squad, you know, you'd have been very well positioned to make quite a lot of profits within these markets. Anyway, that being said, I'm going to do a quick overview because I've not been active, like I said, and I just want to dig into the charts and get myself a bit of a feel for what's going on, and more importantly, what's to come next. Because if the tides are turning in the crypto market, which I do believe they are, we want to be able to position ourselves very well to make sure that we capitalize on any future moves. So our dollars are like soldiers. You know, when we put our dollars into the market, we are sending them behind enemy lines. You know, there's conglomerates of billionaires, there's market makers, there's me versus you, there's there's an infinite amount of variables. So when we put our dollars into the market, we want to make sure we've got our risk management tight, we want to make sure we've got our position sizing correct, and we want to make sure we're taking the highest probability confluence trades to make sure that when we send our soldiers behind enemy lines, we want them to be coming back with more soldiers. We don't want to be sending them out there and then they're gone forever. I cover a lot more of this in Sniper Squad, and I'll tell you more about it again like later on. So what we can see, Bitcoin, we can see it formed this downward trend, which is actually a bullish wedge, which is also very similar to this bullish wedge, which it was in from February 2024, and it ended up breaking out in October. And you can see we've got a retest on that. You know, you could call it a bull flag, you can call it descending parallel channel, you can call it a descending wedge. Either way, it's a bullish pattern which Bitcoin broke out of, and usually it's a measured move. And then we've had the same consolidation. I think it was back here in Sniper Squad. I put this as the highest probability path. I think it was around here. So this is the most highest probability path that Bitcoin could take. And I said something like that, and I think it missed by $1,000 or something like that. I think I said it was going to go to 72k, but I did have it as something like that. And as you can see, I've not been active during this period here. This is the daily time frame. I've not been active during this period because of my house move. So I do hope people manage to capitalize on that technical analysis that was given within Sniper Squad. And as we can see, it's broke out, it's pushed to the upside. And when Bitcoin moves, you know, you can see this as being such, I'm sure most people have been demoralized during this whole phase. Look, every single up candle gets sold off, gets sold off, gets sold off. And now Bitcoin finds itself at major resistance. But when Bitcoin does move, look at that, one bullish candle, two bullish candles, and it's wiped out all of this bearishness and choppiness. But now, what now for Bitcoin? It's currently at 786 fib levels. So if you take the fib tool from the top here and you drag it to the bottom, if you take it from this latest drop here, you drag it to the bottom, it's currently at a major 786. So when we do this, we find where something might bounce to and where it might reject from. We take it from recent significant highs, and we take the fib tool from the high, we drag it to the bottom, and then we get our levels. So that's the 786 from here, and if we took it from the very top, you know, looking at 101k, 100 to 101k, and 96k there would be the 618. But what I'm going to do, I am going to delete all of this, and we will start with a naked chart, because sometimes lines on the chart and different indicators can just mess things up. So what we can see, this here has been it's broke the downward trend, hasn't really retested, and just pumped straight to the upside. So whenever Bitcoin pumps, we have to look to where we can get in on a higher low. However, that's based on the premise that it's in an uptrend. It's been in a downtrend for several months now, and we can see here it's made a high, low, lower high, lower low, lower high, lower low, lower high, lower low. But then as soon as it broke this lower high here, we've had a change of character. That's the market structure now has changed. So it has gone from, you've got a low, a lower low, lower high, lower low, lower high, lower low, lower high, lower low. So that's a downtrend. Now what we needed to see, which we have, is a break of market structure where Bitcoin puts its first, it puts the low in, then that's the lower high, there's the low, and when it makes its first higher high, we want to be getting in on the next higher low. So we've had the break of market structure on the higher time frame, which is massively significant. We can see here, this is a solid area of resistance, and not only because, it's not just because of this candle here where it was instantly rejected, but it's more importantly because we can see it was a major area which capped the old trading range. So if you say that there was the range high, that there was the mid-range, and price, Bitcoin tends to range most of the time. So it spent most of its time in this bottom channel until it lost it. Now what that means is, because this area was such strong support in the past, it means now that's going to be very strong resistance. So this area here, you can see it's bounced once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, 6 times. It's bounced a lot of times in this area, particularly during this cluster here. So this now is going to be very strong resistance, and after these bullish candles from the last few days, we can see it's no surprise that this is where Bitcoin finds itself stalling. Doesn't mean that Bitcoin is going to reject from here, because the thing is, there's millions and millions and millions of traders just like me and you who've been watching the exact same things, and they've seen it break this downtrend. They've seen the break of market structure. They've seen the lows, the lower highs. They've seen the low being set, and they know now that this is a break of market structure. So the bullishness now, the sentiment completely shifts, because during this phase here, everyone was selling every pump. Everyone was selling every pump, whereas now the sentiment shifts. There's that many millions and millions and millions of traders out there who will all be watching the same thing, and they'll all be waiting to buy the dip because they don't want to miss out. Based on Bitcoin's market cycle, which tends to be 4 years, usually it tops around the end of the year after the halving, which would take us to the end of this year, December. December time, October, November, that sort of thing. There's nothing to say it will top at that time. It's just based on history. More often than not, it is the end of the post-halving year where Bitcoin normally tops. And this Bitcoin cycle is different to past Bitcoin cycles, because the difference is this time there's millions and millions and hundreds of millions of people that know about the Bitcoin cycle, whereas in the past they didn't. It wasn't as well known. So this poses a bit of a problem, because usual technical analysis would say this was its breakout area yesterday. So usual technical analysis would say that it could be expected that Bitcoin could retrace all the way back to there before going up. However, with so many people knowing that this has broke out and this is a change of character, the market structure has shifted, it does pose a bit of a risk of this being front run, and it might not come all the way back before making its way back up. The market sentiment in crypto shifts so fast, it is unbelievable. So what I would do with this is I would be looking at where are the levels that it could pull back to. So we've got major levels to look out for. We've got a major 382. So there's the major 382, fib level 382. And then also what I'm going to do is, when things are really bullish, things sometimes only pull back to the 236. So I'm going to put the 236 on, and that highlights another level here. So there's possible bounce zones. Doesn't mean Bitcoin's going to bounce. It might just form a bit of a bull flag here under resistance, and before continuing to pump. The bullishness may not be over yet, because loads of people might be sat on the sidelines with USDT and think, right, I've been waiting for it to break out, and there's people that are more conservative that like to trade off confirmation, and they would be waiting on the sidelines. However, what happens with Bitcoin, and the reason it goes so parabolic, is like here. If you have a look here, Bitcoin broke out, and you've got people on the sidelines that don't believe that this breakout is real. Because if you look at it, look how many times it looked like Bitcoin was going to break out here, here. Look, it looked like it was going to come back up to old highs, come back to old highs, come back to old highs. During all of these, the bulls get exhausted, and people start to think it's never going to break. It's never going to break the old all-time high. You know, it's never going to break out. So when it comes to this, and then it does break out, no one's believing it. And then everyone thought, oh, this is a fake out. And people still sat on the sidelines feeling quite clever with the USDT, thinking, I'll buy confirmation. However, it just pumps and doesn't pull back, because all the people that are sat on the sidelines during this phase, during that candle, start thinking, oh no, Bitcoin's taking off. What if I've missed the pump? What if I'm missing the bull market? What if and they end up jumping in later. So they end up jumping in here, jumping in here, jumping in here, all down to FOMO. And then before you know it, there's family members getting involved, retail start buying, and that's where we get our blow off tops. However, this all happened because of Trump. This was a Trump pump. And we've retraced pretty much most of the Trump pump. If I put a rectangle from the top here, well, you can see what I mean. People front ran that level. So there was the high, there was the high. And usually you would come for a retest, but people front ran it. So in Sniper Squad, I put this level here as the level that I anticipated Bitcoin would bounce from, but it just got front ran by $1,000. And that just is symbolic of the amount of people who are in the market who are scared of missing out. You know, so they've ended up jumping in, front ran price, front ran the retest even, and then Bitcoin's up and away. So I'm going to get rid of all this TA again, because what do we do now? So if the tides are turning on the crypto market, which, like I said, there's a high, there's a lower high, there's a lower low, lower low, lower high, lower low, lower high, lower low, higher high. The next question is, where will the lower low be? Sorry, the lower high. Where will the lower high be? We want to be coming up with a plan where we're getting in on the retracement. We can't rely on the fact that it might come back to this level or this level, because it might get front ran. So we need to have a plan in place, which is why I will be doing quite a lot of live YouTube streams to show people how I'll be trading this market, how I'll be positioning myself, what I'll be looking for, so we can all do it together. That will be the hope, and I hope people learn along the way. So Bitcoin leads the way. I've had a few questions from members of Sniper Squad asking, do altcoins follow Bitcoin? Because I've noticed that, you know, quite often altcoins follow Bitcoin, and the answer is they don't always follow Bitcoin. However, often they do, but they are always impacted and influenced by Bitcoin. Bitcoin is the biggest, it is the biggest crypto in the entire market. So you can see here, this is the Bitcoin dominance chart. This is at 64.41%. So basically just under 65%. What that means is if there's $3 trillion in the end, there's $3 trillion in money in the whole of crypto. You think of every single crypto you can think of, Fartcoin, Solana, and every little tiny micro cap you can think of. There's millions of them. But 65% of the money in the entirety of crypto is in Bitcoin. It is the ultimate crypto. You know, it's trusted. It's seen as digital gold. You know, I could go on and on and on about Bitcoin, and if you don't understand about Bitcoin technology and why it's so secure and why it's so trusted, and you need to go and look into it. And if you know, leave a comment, and I can put some links in, you know, how you can learn about Bitcoin technology. But massive institutions, countries, banks, they are all seeing the value in Bitcoin now, and what we're seeing is potentially hyper Bitcoinization, potentially, you know, in the years to come, taking off, because Bitcoin's really catching on now, just like the old Bitcoin veterans always believed and positioned themselves in accordance to the fact that it possibly could end up taking over the world. And who knows? I mean, countries have been adopting it. I mean, you've got the President of the United States talking about strategic reserves. You know, it's Bitcoin, it's made it, but it's 64.5% almost of the entire money in the crypto market is in Bitcoin. So if you imagine, if Bitcoin doesn't succeed, what altcoin is going to succeed when Bitcoin is the most trusted? It's the first crypto. It's the most secure. You know, I mean, governments have tried to end Bitcoin. You know, the media's tried to end Bitcoin. Banks have tried to end Bitcoin. It is completely decentralized. There's no head of the snake to cut off. You know, there's no CEO of Bitcoin. It is just completely decentralized. If you own a little bit of Bitcoin, you are a part of the Bitcoin network. Nobody can ever take your Bitcoin from as long as you've got your own keys. You know, never lose your keys. So the Bitcoin dominance chart shows, and I've circled these in the past because that's where you get your alt season. Bitcoin dominance shows when Bitcoin is showing strength and growing in strength in relation to the rest of the crypto market. So if Bitcoin's going up like that, Bitcoin dominance, and it goes from 50% to 60%, Bitcoin has just gained another 10% of the entire market share of all of the money in crypto. Another way of putting that, if Bitcoin goes from 50% to 60% of the entire market, that means all other altcoins go from 50% to 40%. So the higher Bitcoin dominance goes, the lower the amount of money is in all of other cryptos. However, it doesn't necessarily mean that altcoins are going down. If you jump in Sniper Squad, I will share you a Bitcoin dominance cheat sheet. But generally, if Bitcoin is trending up and Bitcoin is safe, that's where you start getting altcoins popping off right, left, and center. If Bitcoin dominance is dropping, but Bitcoin price is going up, that's showing that Bitcoin's going up, and money is flowing faster into the altcoins. So that's where you get your alt season. So Bitcoin dominance going down, as long as Bitcoin is either going sideways or up, that if Bitcoin dominance is going down, that's showing that money, the dominance of Bitcoin is dropping in relation to the rest of the altcoin market. So that means, a simple way of putting that is, money is flowing into altcoins faster. So the Bitcoin dominance chart is something that you really kind of want to get to grips with, because it's a bit of a cheat sheet in understanding alt trading, alt season, and everything else really when it comes to the ebbs and flows of money in the market. Bitcoin dominance, if Bitcoin dominance is going up whilst Bitcoin price is going down, that means the Bitcoin price is going down but Bitcoin is still gaining more and more market share. So what does that mean? That means altcoins are going down faster than Bitcoin. I don't know why I've just made that a wide. There we go. Let me see. Oh, still wide. I'll sort that out in a minute. Yes. So let's get back to digging into the charts. So Bitcoin dominance. Bitcoin does affect the entire altcoin market. So if I'm just going to I'm going to quickly rifle through this. Let's do a little market overview, a market snapshot, so we can come up with a bit of plan. What I'm going to do, I'm going to zoom into this on the 4-hour time frame, because what we can see in the past is whenever this happens, whenever you get a move like that, where Bitcoin dominance drops like that, that means money is flowing out of Bitcoin and into the rest of the alt market. You know, usually, as long as Bitcoin is safe, going sideways or up. If Bitcoin was dumping and Bitcoin dominance did that, that just means that the altcoins would be quite steady. Like I say, if you are interested in any of this, leave a comment and I will direct you to Sniper Squad, and in there I can put a Bitcoin dominance cheat sheet, because it can be quite difficult to explain. But Bitcoin dominance, Bitcoin directly related to the rest of the market. So I'm going to rifle through these. All right. So Bitcoin currently at significant resistance. I'm going to pop this in here. Old range low. No surprise that it's stalling. What I want to be seeing is, where's it most likely going to retrace to? And the way that I personally gauge this, I'll use the stochastic RSI. So I'll start to map out a bit of a plan and think, right, high probability bounce zones. But you can see, you know, Bitcoin, it's forming a bit of a flag here. If I come down to the hourly, you know, it's retraced just to here, but people are buying it up. So when you get a wick like that at the bottom of the candle, that's people buying it up. Price has tried to retrace and it's getting bought back up. We've also got the stochastic RSI on the 1 hour at the bottom turning up, which, for people who don't know, the stochastic RSI is a momentum indicator, which can't be used as a standalone indicator to tell you when to buy and sell. However, it can give you a very good gauge of when is a good area, when is a good time to start looking for longs. So generally, when the stochastic RSI is at the bottom, turning up like that, that usually correlates with a good area to be positioning yourself in a long. So you can see that would have been a beautiful long. And then you could see this one here as well. So it was at the bottom turning up, however it wasn't bottomed out. But what you can see is usually, you know, when it's at the bottom, it usually signifies quite a good area to buy. However, you can see there, although it was at the bottom turning up, it did go lower. So if you entered a trade here based on just on the stochastic RSI and you put your stop loss under the last low, if you put it tight here, you would have been stopped out. The point is, it doesn't always mark the bottom, the stochastic RSI, and you have to use it in confluence with many other factors, which I will discuss here in this channel quite regularly. So you can see here, with all these bottoms, quite often, and you can do the same with the tops, quite often it is a good area to have been fishing for longs. Let me just get rid of these lines. And the same can be said for when it's at the top. So when it's at the top and turns down, you can see that shows a retracement there. It was at the top turning down, although it didn't retrace much. Again, at the top turning down. There's another good example of how it was at the top and turned down, but price still went up more. So you can see how it does give good areas for where you maybe could look at taking profit, or you could be looking at short selling. However, you can see that as a standalone indicator, it isn't accurate. What the stochastic RSI shows is the momentum of buyers and sellers. So when it's at the bottom, what that means is, if you imagine it like a rocket, in actual fact, I think you can get rockets on here. Hold on 1 second. That'd be good, wouldn't it? Give you a proper demonstration. Here we go. So if you imagine it like a rocket, Yeah, the stochastic RSI is basically, when it's at the bottom, it shows that the rocket's refueled, shall we say, meaning buyers have refueled, they're now ready to push the price up. However, just like a rocket, it runs out of fuel at some point, and that point is when it reaches the top. When the stochastic RSI reaches the top like that, that is showing that the rocket is running out of fuel, meaning the buyers are getting exhausted. There's not much more fuel in the tank, and when a rocket runs out of fuel, what happens? It starts to come back down, and it comes back down, and then it'll refuel, and when it refuels, it'll get a little bit of momentum again, and then it'll make its way back up. So what you can see, the stochastic RSI is basically buyers and sellers. The buyers running out of fuel, or when it's at the bottom, the buyers are refueling, and then when it runs to the top, that's the buyers running out of fuel. So it does give you a good gauge as to when you can start fishing for long positions, short positions, when you should be taking profits, when you should be looking at areas where you could potentially be buying in or selling. So it's quite a good gauge. However, what we want to be doing is marking out the significant levels, because Bitcoin might not be done with its pump yet. So we'll mark out the significant levels. They're the significant levels, which is pretty good for speed. So what I want to be looking at is where Bitcoin might pull back to. Where is the higher low going to be? And this is what I'll do. I'll get a fib tool out. I'll take it from the most recent low to where the expansive move started, and then I'll plot out some levels here. So there's the 382. I like using the 382. Everyone in Sniper Club, Sniper Squad knows all about that, because I bang on about it all the time. And the 618. So I'm just going to get rid of that fib tool. I'm going to get rid of that big rectangle. So these are levels that I would like to see Bitcoin retrace to. However, the stochastic RSI will tell me whether this level can be trusted or not. So if we see price come up here and make a bit of a flag and start to settle here, and the stochastic RSI on the 4 hour has come down, starts turning up, I will get a trend line in. I will track the trend like that. There has to be 3 touches on trend line for it to be valid. So it'll be like 1, 2, 3, and on the break of that trend, if the stochastic RSI is at the bottom turning up, that will be my trigger to start getting into a position. However, there's nothing to say that Bitcoin will come down to the 382. It might come to the 236. It might come down to the 618. It's if it comes down to the 618, that would be the area. That again, though, the stochastic RSI will tell me whether this is a retracement zone that can be trusted. So these are the areas that I would be looking at. I would like to see Bitcoin maintain this rising trend line. I just think that's healthy for a trending market. You remember me saying before, what makes a trend line valid? 3 touches. There's only 2 here. There's only 2. So it's not a valid trend line yet. However, you sometimes have to anticipate, where the trend line might be formed. So Bitcoin might come all the way down here and retest, and then I'll be looking at tracking the downtrend with a trend line, and then a break of structure on the lower time frame, so 15-minute time frame. Again, same applies. Lower high, lower low, lower high, lower low, looking for the first higher high, higher low, and the trend line would be in there, and I would get in on the break of trend, confirmation of the first higher high, I'd get in on the higher low, and that is what I'll be looking for regardless. But first things first, got to let Bitcoin do its thing, because Bitcoin leads the way, Bitcoin leads the charge, and then the rest of the market tends to follow Bitcoin. So that's what I'll be looking for on Bitcoin. And the ultimate higher low for me would be here, because that would be a retest of this breakout. I'll get rid of that. That'll be a retest of this breakout here, which you can see is the peak of a giant W. So if you see, there's the W, there was the peak. So it broke out. It would be very healthy for it to come and have a retracement, a retest here, and then we can potentially see it go on to higher levels. So these are the things I'll be watching out for. The stochastic RSIs, I will be looking for them. I think there does need to be a bit of a cool off for the next few days, but the market sentiment has shifted. Like I said before, it's made a new high, so now for me it's like letting Bitcoin do its thing. Obviously I'll be scalp trading and doing bits and bobs like that, and getting more active, but when it comes to positioning on swing trades, building big healthy positions, accumulating spot positions, this is one of the main things that I will look at. It's like, what is Bitcoin doing? Where's Bitcoin at? I don't want to be buying into green candles like that, because if I buy into a green candle here, Bitcoin has it has the potential, not just potential, probability that it's going to retrace 6%. So if I buy in around here chasing green candles, I'm pretty much guaranteed to be 6% down in the coming days, because Bitcoin will have a cool off. It will have a cool off. It might go up another 5%, but at some point it's going to have a cool off, and I don't want to be buying in after green candles. I would much rather let the dust settle, let Bitcoin do its thing, let Bitcoin have a bit of a cool off, let the stochastic RSIs reset, and then start positioning myself very wisely into some strong assets. So that's what I'm looking at on Bitcoin. Also as well, I'd put on a moving average, look at the 20, the 50, the 100, the daily, because these all add confluence for levels of support. So when you couple those with fib tool, you'll see the 382 corresponds here with, I think my orange one on this chart is the 100 PV moving average. Just double check. Yeah, the 100 PV moving average. Then we've got the 20 and the 50 PV moving average here at the bottom turning up. So that's going to provide very, very strong support if Bitcoin comes down to these levels. And then we've got here, this red one is the 200 PV moving average, which is extremely significant, and generally is quite symbolic of a bull market. Bitcoin doesn't really come down to retest those that very often, and it very rarely loses it in bullish conditions. So I will be watching for these levels. I'll be watching the 382. I'll be watching this area here where the 200 PV moving average is, where this rising trend line is, where the 618 is, and I will be looking for that sort of move. Trend line in, stochastic RSI to have reset, and for higher highs and higher lows, which is what we can expect when we've had a break of market structure. So that being said, let's have a look at a few altcoins for what we want to see. So we've got Bitcoin dominance, continue to make new highs. This is its cycle high this time, and which broke this wick here. It's been grinding up for years now, and I remember in the last bull market and the last bear market, nobody thought Bitcoin dominance would go this high, because during the last bull market, Bitcoin dominance, look, was down here. I'm sure it was lower than that as well. For some reason, my internet's not loading up the rest of the chart, but you can see here it was at 40%. And people thought with all the altcoins now, Solana and Ethereum and Near Protocol and Cardano and all them, nobody ever thought Bitcoin would go back up to 60%. However, here we are, we're at 64.5%, and as you can see, it's been in an uptrend. It's been in an uptrend since September 2022. So what I would like to see at some point, and when we get a proper alt season, we'll see Bitcoin break that rising trend line, and even that move there will be massive for altcoins, absolutely massive. So it's always worth keeping an eye on Bitcoin dominance. Like I said before, it is like a cheat code for the market. And if I was trading on lower time frames, I would be tracking this because it adds an extra level of confluence when it comes to me making trades. So if Bitcoin dominance is on support, more often than not, I can expect Bitcoin dominance to bounce, which means that'll be bearish for altcoins. And if Bitcoin dominance is at resistance, that would be an area where I might be looking along altcoins, because that's bullish for alts. Because if Bitcoin dominance is at resistance and it rejects, remember, Bitcoin dominance goes down, usually altcoins go up, as long as Bitcoin's safe. And you can see here, this is what I did in, and I put this in my regular market overviews and updates in Sniper Squad. And I've been putting this in for months. But I think when Bitcoin dominance was around here, you know, I highlighted this area, this rising trend line, as an area, and that area as an area where it could reject, which it did, and then come down and it bounced. As I said, it may well do at this level. We don't really want to see Bitcoin dominance ploughing up more. We want to see a bit of relief in the altcoins. So it would be nice, like I said, to see Bitcoin dominance make a high, a break of market structure, and begin a downtrend. So everyone's altcoins and spot bags can be pumped for a sustainable period. So that's what we've all been waiting for. Everyone's been screaming for alt season for years. And that's what alt season will look like when it breaks market structure and goes down like that. Let's have a look at USDT dominance. So I haven't actually opened this chart for a week or two. And this is what I posted in Sniper Squad, actually, and it's followed it almost to a T. I said when it breaks this rising trend line, we can expect a retest and then potentially it dumping, which it has. And with USDT dominance, this shows, let me get rid of all this. This shows how much people are flooding into stable coins, or when USDT dominance goes down, it shows how much of that USDT is flooding back into crypto. So if USDT is going up, that's showing people are flooding into USDT. And if it's going down, it's showing people are flooding out of USDT and into crypto. So with the last few days, this is inversely proportionate to the rest of crypto, you know, including Bitcoin, Ethereum, all of them. So if this is dropping like that, USDT dominance is going down, crypto's going up. That can be represented in the total chart, which is inversely correlated. Basically, it'll look very similar to USDTD, USDT dominance, but in reverse. So you can see total market cap is all the money in crypto. So looks very similar to the Bitcoin chart. However, it's not had quite as much of a sustainable pump because this includes all the altcoins as well. Total 2 is all of the money in crypto apart from Bitcoin. So you can see, although Bitcoin is clearly in an uptrend, it has been in a downtrend of late, obviously. But look, you can see that's a lot steeper than the Bitcoin chart. So have a look at Bitcoin's chart. And then if you have a look at total 2, you know, look at that. So alts have been hit hard, you know, since December, January. And total 3 it represents all of the money in crypto apart from Bitcoin and Ethereum. So what we've got, I'm just going to get rid of the moving averages so we can get a better look at this. What I showed you on Bitcoin, where I want to see Bitcoin make a higher low. If Bitcoin comes down, you know, if it comes into here and then starts cooling off for the next few days, which I would like to see, and it comes down to here or bounces at the 382 and makes its way up, how that would be reflected in total 3 would be very similar. I actually posted this in Sniper Squad the other week, and you can see 382 was pinged perfectly by total 3. and I basically shown it might find support on the 382, break trend, and then it'll be up, up, up and away, which is exactly what has happened. So now what we want to see is total 3 come back, have its little retest. We've got this level here to get through, which is major resistance. But what I want to be seeing, same as Bitcoin, I want to see it have its little pullback, whether it makes a little flag like this onto a significant level, just like Bitcoin, like I showed you on here. And that's when I want to be buying some spot positions and some swing positions and start building into swing positions using a martingale strategy, which means I'll buy a bit and then a bit lower down. If price continues lower down, I'll buy another bit, and then if it continues lower down again, I'll buy another bit. But my orders will increase in size the lower that they're stacked. And this is all based on the premise of we don't know where the higher low is going to be. But I am assuming, based on the probabilities, that now Bitcoin has broke structure, which was here, and it's made that high, that higher high. I am anticipating that it is going to go and make a higher low, and I want to be positioning my dollars not in the FOMO and feeling like I've missed out on all this move. You know, in the grander scheme of things, let's have a look at it on a weekly time frame. You know, we've missed out on nothing. We've missed out on just a change of market conditions. You know, that's all we've missed out on. You know, a change of market conditions, that's it. You know, it's like this here, that candle there, this is a weekly time frame, and there's nothing to say. If Bitcoin does retrace and come back down to here, it could finish the week looking like that candle there. And you see that little inverted hammer, which is a bullish candle. Yeah, it could end up finishing the week looking like that. But the point is, it will have broken the market structure. And look what happened after that candle. You know, everyone there probably felt like they'd missed out. Everybody there on that green candle, after this long consolidation, they'd felt like they'd missed out. It's important to put things into perspective. You know, imagine everyone after this long downtrend, consolidation, sideways, that one green candle, people here will have felt like they missed out, but they hadn't missed out on nothing. It was just beginning, you know. So I don't feel like I've missed out. It's just important to plan and prepare our trades and to trade our plan and to position ourselves in the safest possible way to make sure that we're not putting our money at risk, and to get a bit of perspective and think, right, Bitcoin's pushed up to this level, let's see where it pulls back to, and then we can start positioning ourselves on the next higher low. And we need to do that sensibly, strategically, with military precision, and yes, USDTD. So usually after a big red candle like that, it's not, I mean, you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 candles, bearish candles. In actual fact, quite interesting, because we can see, just looking at it now, USDT dominance, made a lower high. Sorry, it's made its high, a lower low, a lower high, and it could be going to make a lower low. So this could be massive. However, what's quite common after a major bullish candle or a major bearish candle, what's quite common is, you know, price will come and fill the imbalance. If we have a look at Bitcoin, that big weekly candle there, there's a massive imbalance there. Imbalance meaning it's just been buying. There's going to be loads of people that didn't get a chance to buy in during this candle, which creates an imbalance in the chart. And the markets are very, very, very efficient, and they usually do fill imbalances. So you can even see here, look, massive bullish candle, massive bullish candle, massive bullish candle. Slowly but surely, price came back and filled the imbalance on the charts, meaning it gave every single person who wanted to buy here an opportunity to buy at a later date. Price comes back and it fills these imbalances quite regularly. So we've not missed out on anything. We just need to position ourselves accordingly. Ethereum, Bitcoin. So historically, Ethereum, this chart shows the strength of Ethereum against Bitcoin. And historically, when Ethereum gains strength against Bitcoin, like you see there, and like you see there, that is extremely healthy for the altcoin market. And that has usually been a trigger for alt season. So Ethereum, if you think of it like the sergeant major, like the captain, like the Spartan leader, it leads all the altcoins in an attack. You know, it's the front runner. It's like it charges and it leads the way. And when it gains strength against Bitcoin, usually Ethereum would lead the way and all other altcoins would follow, and that would represent alt season. Usually Ethereum, Bitcoin bottoming and turning and bouncing usually is representative of the start of alt season, but it just hasn't turned and bounced. However, what has happened, let me get my drawings up, so we can see that was the 2019 low, and then it bounced, so that was like the alt season of 2019. That was the 2020 low, and it bounced against Bitcoin, and that was the alt season of 2020, and that was just before DeFi summer. DeFi summer was all this year in 2020. And then that was the Ethereum Bitcoin low of 2021 bull market before it went on a tear. And that was a massive alt season. That was retail all flocked in. Terra Luna went parabolic. Solana went parabolic. Everything went parabolic. And it was a great time to be alive. However, what we're seeing here on Ethereum Bitcoin, you know, we want to see this bottom. And we need to see, for a start, there's a series of events that need to happen for something bottoming. It needs to do what Bitcoin's done yesterday. It needs to break the last lower high. So, you know, Ethereum, Bitcoin, it's been so bearish. Breaking this downtrend would be a start. It's got quite a lot of work to do. This range here is the old range low. We want to see it break trend and start an uptrend. And if we see that, you know, then we will start seeing proper alt season. However, it's debatable whether Ethereum has the same validity in the markets as it once did, because there's lots of other projects like Sui, Solana, and lots of others who've got very, very good tokenomics, very good use cases, good fundamentals, good teams. And the question is, why would you use Ethereum when Solana is usability, you know, its user interface, its speed, its finalization of transactions, it's better than Ethereum in pretty much every way. Why would people be using Ethereum? So, but one thing that I think is it's not up for debate. If Ethereum does start an uptrend, it's going to be extremely healthy for the rest of the market, and then we will see an alt season off the back of that. However, it doesn't necessarily mean we have to see Ethereum start an uptrend for alt season, because, like I say, it's debatable whether Ethereum, you know, will ever truly recover to the heights against Bitcoin that it once had. I'm not saying it's not going to. I'm not saying it is. All I'm saying is it's looking quite unhealthy and it's not doing great. So I do hope it bounces back. I'm a big fan of Ethereum, and I know the health that it brings into the alt market. So I really do hope it bounces back and starts an uptrend soon. And however, what I was saying, it's the start of all the work that Ethereum's got to do will be on breaking this trend, and it's pressing against it now. So this is stage one. We want to see it break trend. Then we want to see it make its high, its first higher high, because that's its lower high, and that'll be its low. We want to see it make a higher high, and then we'll be looking at where's it going to set its higher low. So I watch all of these things to get a better perspective on what's going on in the markets. So we've done total 3. I'm looking for a pullback onto rid of all these. So as a general blueprint, most altcoins have followed this path. They've broken the downtrend, and just like Bitcoin has, they've broken the downtrend and they've broken the last high. I think there are some that haven't, but what I want to be seeing, same as Bitcoin, I want to see it pull back now. This is total 3, so this represents all altcoins apart from Bitcoin and Ethereum. Although Bitcoin's not an altcoin, but all altcoins apart from it, every crypto apart from Bitcoin and Ethereum. So I want to be seeing, I want to be marking out levels, and if we assume that that there is the high and it's retracing from that point, these are the fib levels to watch. So like I said before, I like 382. I'm going to get rid of the 236. So that for me is the first optimal. So we've got the low, we've got an equal high, a higher low, and now a higher high. So now we want to see the next higher low. So I would like to see something like that. But if the market gets bullish, it might come to the fib levels from this most recent high, low, sorry. So we've got 382. So if it is really bullish, it might only pull back onto this level here before going. But I'll be tracking all these things, and I'll be tracking trends. If I come down to the 1 hour time frame, I'll show you what I mean by tracking trends. So price might go like that, in which case I'll be tracking this trend down, and I'll be waiting for it to come onto a significant fib level, whichever one that may be, and a break of trend correlating with horizontal support. So there's the 50%, there's the 618. I'm going to get rid of that one. So I'm going to get rid of the fib tool now, and I'll put in this here. So let's get rid of this fib tool. That should clean it up. There are my levels of interest. So what I'll do on any retracement, on any altcoin, and pretty much on any time frame, I will track a trend like that onto a significant fib level. There's the 382, there's the 50%, there's the 618, and I mean, if things get extremely bearish over the next few days, you know, we might be looking down, you know, to lower levels. It'll still be a higher low, even if it comes to the 786, which is around here. So I track it. I track the downtrend, and as long as it's under that downtrend line, it's still in a downtrend. It's as simple as that. I track it until I see it hit a significant fib level, which also correlates with significant support, which you can see that would be, because support is old resistance, 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 and then it was resistance here, and then it's reclaimed it as support. And then when you see the break of trend, that for me is confirmation. Get in with my risk to reward tool. I will demonstrate stop loss under the last low, and then I'm playing it back to the highs or higher, because this is in an uptrend. So that would be the level I'd be looking at there. That would be the next resistance level. And then after that, we're looking at this level here. So remember, this is total 3. So it's all cryptos apart from Bitcoin and Ethereum. So I'll be tracking this. I'll be keeping people posted in Sniper Squad, and I'll be posting trades which I find which correlate with Bitcoin pulling back, with total 3 pulling back, with USDT going down, with Bitcoin dominance dropping, with Ethereum Bitcoin potentially going up. So all of these different moving parts are like the inner workings of a Swiss watch. And I'll be watching all of these things, But then we find altcoins. You know, we'll be looking for altcoins, because when Bitcoin goes up 2%, 3%, your altcoins will go up 10%. If Bitcoin drops 3-4%, altcoins may drop 10 to 15%. So I'd always prefer to trade altcoins because of the profitability. However, we always need to keep an eye on the godfather, the daddy, Bitcoin. That leads the market, that dictates what's going on. So as we've already established, Bitcoin, we're looking at just Bitcoin. I'll be looking at Bitcoin just doing its thing, and I'll be interested in getting on a retracement when the stochastic RSIs have reset on the 8 hour, maybe more often than not 4 hour, when it's bullish like it is now, and there's been a sentiment shift and there's a market structure shift. People will start, everyone will be waiting to get in on the next higher low, so the sentiment can be really bullish. As you can see there, you know, since I've started streaming, you know, it's just continued to grind up. However, that candle is a clear rejection candle, and there'll be people there, late longers, who will be trapped now. So people who longed on this candle here, on that breakout, and then prices retraced, they're underwater. So now it's just whether or not market maker releases those trapped longs, and if it does, then we could be looking at Bitcoin potentially at 100k in the next, God, it could even happen today. But because imagine how many people are shorting. That's why what we've got here, this here was a short squeeze. So somebody asked me in Sniper Squad earlier on about liquidation levels, liquidity in the market. And I said, when you've got an area like this where it's been rejected, or you've got swing highs like this, people short around the highs. They'll all put the stop loss there. Price came up to here, people will have shorted, they'll have put the stop loss there. When price came up to here, everyone's expecting it to reject because it has done in the past. People will short, and price has just hit the stop losses, grabbed that liquidity, all those stop losses, all these stop losses, and then what happens, your stop loss converts into a market buy order. Beyond the scope of this video, however, your stop loss gets hit and that buys, and another stop loss gets hit and they buy, and then you get a cascade called a short squeeze. And that's what happened, which has led to this big pump here. Now the reason I'm mentioning that is because there's every possibility that there could be another one very soon because people will have been anticipating Bitcoin rejecting at this level here. It's a major 786. It's a major resistance level, and look at this, it's the old range low. You know, it bounced. When it lost it, it came back, retested it, and rejected. So it's a major level. But the point is, there'll be people who shorted here, and maybe even people who shorted around here, their stop losses will be there. These stop losses will be here. And if people are shorting here now, expecting it to go down, their stop losses will be there. So if price does come here, that could create another cascading effect, and it could pump Bitcoin up to 100k, 99k, and this will be the next rejection zone. So all I'm interested in is when the stochastic RSIs have reset themselves, where's Bitcoin at then? Has it managed to trickle its way down onto the 382 and a rising trend line? If it has, that for me is an optimal area to belong in. Trend line in, horizontal support, yes. 382, trend line in. Once it breaks trend, stop loss under the last low, playing it to at least the next level. But yes, in a trending market like this, we really want to be looking at building some good swing positions, because people feel like they've maybe missed out on the pump. But look back, look at this here. This is kind of what we're experiencing. We've had a long downtrend, and Bitcoin's only just broke out, really. So it could be considered to be this candle. You know, there's something interesting to show you actually. CoinGlass. So let me show you this. On CoinGlass, if you don't know how to use CoinGlass or you're not aware of it, it's an exceptional site with loads of different tools. You can find liquidation heat maps for open interest, funding rates. But this is what I want to show you. I want to show you the liquidation levels from yesterday. You can see Look at that big red candle. That's the biggest liquidation event. Almost 300 million in one day, and that exceeded all other liquidation events since November the 6th. So November the 6th was the last time we had a liquidation event anywhere near that on Bitcoin. And that's all the shorts getting squeezed out, all the stop losses. So if we go back to the 6th of November, let's go back to the 6th of November and see what happened on the 6th of November. So here you can see, I'm going to mark it with a horizontal line. You know what, I'll just, yeah, I will mark it with a horizontal line. So if we have a look at the 6th of November, yeah, there's been that big green candle there. So that's what we've experienced. That was the 6th of November. Big candle, and look what happened. There was 242 million liquidated. So 242 million shorts liquidated, and that was a proper short squeeze. So let's just have a little look again. So that big green candle there, that was the short squeeze. And everyone will have felt like they missed out on that green candle. They'll have been, oh no, the market's pumped. I am not even in a trade. I've been left behind. But were they left behind? Was it too late? Look what happened after that. You know, Bitcoin still went up. It went up another 45%. You know, so we haven't missed out on anything. That's just the first candle. That's the breakthrough candle. So now it's about the higher low. However, if it continues to consolidate sideways and the stochastic RSIs do reset, particularly the 4 hour. I like the 4 hour when it's trending market, bullish conditions. I'll be waiting to see where price is at when this gets down to the bottom here, and I'll be looking at where price is at. I'll have a trend line in, I'll be tracking it. Is it on horizontal support? Is it on a rising trend line? Is it on a significant Fibonacci level? I'll get Spaceman BTC and I'll put that on. Is it on a significant level? You know, it might retrace onto the Monday high. And my last previous YouTube video was about the key levels. Go and have a look at them. It might retrace to the Monday high. So right now we've got the 618 in here. We've got a Monday high. We've got a rising trend line. Significant horizontal retest of the breakout zone. This for me is a significant level. So I would like to see it retrace on the Monday high, but there's nothing to say that it has to, because this is Bitcoin. And like I said before, you know, November the 6th. Look what happened on November the 6th. Broke to the upside. Everyone's super bullish. Everyone's got FOMO. Nobody wants to miss out. Everyone's waiting for a pullback. Everyone's waiting for the higher low. It just didn't come. You know, it just went sideways and up. And so we just need to be mindful that that could happen. You know, it might not necessarily have a pullback. However, this is what I'm saying. Look, it broke to the upside. Everyone will have waited, but when the stochastic RSI reset on the 4 hour, that actually was the best time to get in. Look, because it just kind of went sideways here. Stochastic RSI at the bottom, turning up, that was the best time to get in, after they'd missed that initial candle. So we need to just consider all these things, you know, before positioning ourselves. So we'll look at altcoins, and I'm going to have to go in a minute because I have to get the children. I have to get the children to bed. Give my partner a break, but I just wanted to jump on just to show my plan, what I'll be planning on doing, and it will all be about getting in the higher low, reset of the stochastic RSIs, where's Bitcoin at, where's the price at, where's total free at, what's Bitcoin dominance doing, what's USDTD dominant, what's USDT, struggle to say that one, USDT dominance doing, what's that doing. So this is what I did post in Sniper Squad. Actually, Chainlink was here, and yes, this was a week ago. Chainlink was here, and I said, watch out, snipers, for Chainlink coming into 382, and we can see came into 382 beautifully, and it's rallied from that point. So I hope some snipers in Sniper Squad got into that. Let's see what move we've had on the table there. nearly a 30% move. So if you're not in Sniper Squad and you're watching this, the link I will put in the description of this video. It's free to join for a limited time period only, and also do one-to-one mentorship. I do Zoom sessions, regular live Zoom sessions where we're taking trades together. You know, live market analysis 2-3 times a week. If the market dumps, we'll jump online, steady the ship, you know, stabilize everyone's mindset, because there's opportunity in everything. The market dumps, I'm like, right, what are my key levels? Where are they at? What's being hit? Where's the opportunity? Because I don't want to be buying. I mean, I don't want to be buying when something's here. I don't want to be buying these green candles. I want to be waiting for pullbacks. So when the market dumps, it's the perfect opportunity. However, if you've not got a plan, you've not got a strategy, then when the market dumps, most people are panicking. You know, without a strategy, we would be panicking. But for me, I won't be buying green candles like this. I will wait for that pullback. During that pullback, everyone will be panicking. You'll see messages on Twitter. You'll see messages on Telegram. Why is the market dumping? Is it ever coming back? Is the bull market over? Whereas in Sniper Squad, and this is what I'll be doing, I'll be waiting for that pullback. So when it pulls back, I'm like, right, here's my level, here's my entry, and then we're good to go. So if you find yourself without a plan, without a strategy, follow the link below this video. I'll post it in there later, but that's not a shameless plug that I was planning on doing. This was about having a look at some potential trades. So key levels, much the same on Chainlink. We're looking at significant pullback levels. Let me get rid of this old fib tool. I'm just going to whip through a few altcoins for you, and then I'm going to have to end this stream. Again, stochastic RSI doesn't necessarily have to come all the way down. Doesn't, you know, sometimes it can teeter along the top like that for quite a period of time. However, if you come down to the hourly, that's much more reliable in getting pullbacks, and you can see it's pulled back to the bottom now. So this could now potentially break to the upside. But I'm just going to map out some key levels just to give everyone something to look at, something to look out for, and a little plan moving forward. So let me get rid of that. Get rid of that arrow. Because it's all the same as the Bitcoin plan, really. You can see they've all followed the same sort of blueprint. There's been a low, there's the resistance, price has pulled back, it's broke the high, and now it's up, up, and away. Break a structure. Lower low, equal high, higher low, broke the last high, and now it's in an uptrend. There's the lower high. This could be the higher high, and we want to be getting in on the lower high around this level. So it's the same blueprint as Bitcoin, same blueprint as the total 3. Also part of that blueprint has been breaking this long downtrend. So what we want to find is something which has just broke this long downtrend and is on the verge of making its way to the upside. But with Chainlink, I'm going to look for areas of confluence. I'll take the major fib level from the bottom to the top, and we see that this is 382 here. So if price pulls back to this level, that would actually still be healthy. However, it'll have broke trend, and then it could potentially have a bounce and could be coming to lower levels, in which case I'd have a trend line in, as always, waiting for the break of trend before, because you've got to think that would still be a higher low. Even if price comes to here, that would still be a higher low. There would be the low, that would be the high, and that would be the higher low. So it's just about tracking these things and understanding, as long as it's above that still, it's maintaining its uptrend. When it loses that, then it could potentially be looking at a retest, and that's when I'd be shorting. I'll be doing some videos on shorting as well. Obviously everyone in Sniper Squad gets these videos, and I've got them all pinned in the Telegram group, so you can join that for free. There's educational videos in there, but this would be an area I'd be looking at on Chainlink, and potentially this area as well. So map them on your charts. Obviously if it pops through here, then that brings upper levels into play. So we'll be looking at, that'll be its first rejection zone. let me put this on a higher time frame actually. Yeah, and then this level, and if it gets above that, you've got to think, if you look at the Bitcoin chart, Bitcoin is currently here, so that's Chainlink's old range low. Bitcoin's currently here, so Chainlink is catching it, and the altcoins will be playing catch up because Bitcoin leads the way. Bitcoin barges its way to new highs, and then it stabilizes, and that's when the altcoins are like, right, it's safe, and then they go. So you can see that on Bitcoin, charged its way. I posted this yesterday in Sniper Squad, showing the low high, the lower low, lower high, lower low, lower high, and shown that if it rejected from this level, it'd be coming down here, we'd be looking for the lower high. However, if it broke through, then we'd be looking for a pullback to the 382, which we've already covered. So let's have a look at SUI. So look at this. SUI absolutely ripping. So same again for SUI, short squeeze after short squeeze it looks like, but same again, it's broke this major downtrend, then it's broke through that high, then it's broke through that high, and that's why it's just getting short squeeze after short squeeze. So now it's coming into another major level. So let's come up with a bit of a plan for SUI. We get rid of all these. Let me just have a little drink. So that was its old W formation. That was the peak of its W. There was the W. Broke through that. If things get really bullish, it might just pull back to this level. That's its next little resistance level to get through. And you can map this really simply and easily. Look, you just look into the left of the chart. Where's price bounced from? Where's it rejected from? And then that is a major level. So we've got our levels here. This is a high probability rejection zone. And then what we might be looking at, let me get my trend line in. So we get a trend line in, and then the fib tool, take it from its absolute bottom. See, this doesn't look like it's stopping here, but I'm just going to put it in. Obviously, if SUI goes to this level here, then you'd move it up to here, and then you would look at your Fibonacci levels based on wherever this high finishes, and then you take it also from, so I take the major fib levels, I'll take it from the major low to the recent high. However, then they're your major fib levels then, from the last major low to the major high. But then you can also take it from the low where this move started, and you can get accurate retracement levels just from that. So if I take it from here, you can see the 382 correlates absolutely perfectly with this level here. So for me, that's a golden buy zone. If SUI comes to, if the market's bullish and it only retraces to the 382, this is a nice level, $2.78. If the market's has a bit more of a retracement, maybe a day of cooling off, and comes down to the 618, then that's the next golden little buy zone. And the thing I really like about that level, the 618, not only is it Fibonacci's golden zone, but if you have a look at it, by the time price gets there, as long as the market doesn't absolutely tank, we could expect to see something like this, a deviation above, a downtrend to start, and then it could just bleed its way, trickle its way onto the 618, onto this rising trend line, before, that would be a healthy retracement, before making its way back up, and then we could expect to see something along those lines. And once it gets above this level, it's in bullish territory then, because it's in its upper range. So that's when you start looking at much more bullish prices for SUI. So that would be its range high. That there would be its mid-range. And things are either losing level or gaining level. So if it gets into this area, this is where I'll get really bullish on SUI. If it gets above $3.25, holds above, reclaims it, that's when I'll be positioning myself in longs. However, this here, this $2.50 level, that for me is going to be the golden zone. I'll be very, very interested in getting in on a higher low at SUI at $2.50 here. So map that out on your charts, set yourself some alerts. If price did break this rising trend line and it came below here, then it's more bearish territory, and I'd be looking at maybe shorting it to lower levels, and it might just mean it's going to take a bit more time consolidating under these levels before, you know, before the buyers can refuel, like I said before, and sending it to higher levels. So there's your levels on SUI, high probability rejection zone here, high probability bounce zone, and the 618 here, golden zone. So let's have a look if there's anything else right now. Solana. So Solana's actually, see, all of them are doing the same sort of thing. Let me get rid of all this. There's the W. Broke trend, broke the neck of the W, and now it's moving up to higher levels. So if it breaks through this level, we could be seeing a bit of a short squeeze on Solana, to be honest. There's quite a lot of people selling here, and then that would bring this level into play. You know, you're looking at 180, 175 to 180, and then after that, you'd be looking at around $200. So we're letting Bitcoin do its thing. We'll see where things retrace to. Want to get in on a higher low, and for me, Solana, I want to be getting in. It all comes down to Bitcoin, total free, Bitcoin dominance, all those other factors, but I want to be getting in on when the stochastic RSI's reset on the 1 hour or the 4 hour, and when it pulls back onto a significant level. But it doesn't look like Solana's done. There might be another, you know, whether it's the rest of today, might be a little pump tomorrow, but this will run out of steam, and then we will start seeing a little downtrend just while things cool off, and that's when I'll be interested. So there's the major 382 there, from the bottom here to the top. This is current. However, if Solana continues to pump higher, then your fib tool would need to be moved accordingly. So say like Solana pumped up to, say it pumped up to here and then was rejected. You would then take your fib tool from the bottom of this move, you would take it to the top of that move, and that would give you your high probability reaction levels here, which actually would be really nice because that would correlate with that level there, that horizontal. But yeah, for me it's the same with a lot of them. We need to just wait for things to cool off and see where the dust settles when it pulls back. So that's going to be my tagline for all of them, I'm afraid, at the moment. If Solana rejects from here, then we're looking at 131, 124 and 117 as the golden levels. Why is that not working? Hold on a sec. So 131, but if the market does remain bullish, the 236 might come into play, so let me put that on. You know, there's a chance in bullish conditions that it just pulls back to the 236. You know, so watch out for that one as well. But it's much the same for all of them. You're tracking any little retracement downtrend, get a trend line in, break of trend, stop loss under the last low. In that case, it'd be there. As soon as it makes higher high, higher low, higher high, you can tighten your stop loss up. When it breaks a new level, you know, you can either add to it once it's reclaimed that level and move your stop loss tighter, or you can just enjoy the ride. But the market is shifting. There has been a shift. Things are looking more bullish, I'm pleased to say, because this long, tiring downtrend, I think, has absolutely hammered everybody. Yeah, but the blueprint is the same for many of them. You're looking at this, you're looking at a pullback for AVAX. You're looking at this level as the first significant level that you want to see it hold. We'll get a trend line in here. If it breaks this level here, which it's currently rejecting from, then you'll be looking at higher levels here. And I'm going to put a big one in here, because if AVAX, and it's the same with many altcoins, if it gets through these levels, then that's when you get a major short squeeze. You know, then you're looking at AVAX back at 35, 38 to $36. So nobody's too late. If you look at it, it's as simple as this. This is just a consolidation, accumulation range. We've had one little high. Now that is where I'll get bullish on AVAX here, because that's where you're going to have a significant move. You know, you'll get a good short squeeze when all these stop losses are taken out from there, and that's when we'll be looking at a 30% move. So what I'll plan on doing is building a position on the next high and low, and this goes for all altcoins, guys. I'll be planning on building a significant position on the next high and low, and I'll probably compound into it, and by the time AVAX gets to this level here, you know, I'll be looking at having a very healthy size position, getting ready for this 30% move. You know, so I will update accordingly. If you want to see how this is done, compounding strategies, scalping strategies, you know, all this sort of stuff, how to only risk 1% and potentially make 25% on your portfolio from only risking 1%. That's part of the compounding system, which I've been teaching within Sniper Squad. Join Sniper Squad. Like I said before, it's for free. There's one-to-one mentorship, Zoom calls, little crash courses in trading. There's all sorts going to be going on in there. So I'm just going to go through rapid fire. I know I said that before, but this is going to be rapid fire. So it's the same with all of them. I'll be looking at, that's a significant level that I would like to see it maybe hold. I'll get a rising trend line in here. I'd like to see it hold that rising trend line. Also, what we can see here with Aptos, we've got this downtrend, which it's currently rejecting at now. Not rejecting, but it's currently pressing against now. We've also got this horizontal level. So you could have a good continuation play here on Aptos. If it breaks through that level and holds, if it pops through here, if it pops through, you want to be looking at a pullback to here. Again, as always, trend line in, break of trend, and then you'd be playing it to this level. And then above that, it'd be this level and then that level. So there are your levels for Aptos. Yeah, optimal area to buy would be here. Major fib tool in from the bottom to, depends where the, see, it's not finished with pumping yet, so I'm just going to anticipate that maybe it'll reject at this trend line, and then this would be a 236, that'd be a 382. So this would be a good area to be getting into longs, but then also there's another trend line in here. Let me get rid of that fib tool. There's another trend line in here. Can you see that? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 3 touches makes a solid trend line. So that could be a very good area to get back in as well. So I'm going to get rid of that. So if you're watching this, get some of these charted. It's the same blueprint from all of them, fib from the bottom to the top. You're looking at this neckline of the W. That would be an optimal area to pull back to. However, there's also the rising trend lines, because if this pulls back to here, that there, 382 around this level, rising trend line, horizontal, and then you could start building a position around this level with a view, start building a position around this level with a view to add in when it reclaims that level. You could add a bit there, and then a break of that trend, and on the next pullback you could add significantly and put your stop loss in, and by the time it breaks that level, we'll be looking at a nice move to the upside. And again, similar to what I said before, once it gets through this level, that's short squeeze territory then, and that brings bullish moves into play. So there's 25% move there for Aptos, but it all depends on Bitcoin, obviously. So I'm going to have to end this stream, guys. I hope you've enjoyed it, taken something from it. Whenever I've got spare time, I'll be jumping on here. I'll be doing this quite regularly. Today was much more of a looking on a macro perspective, zooming into the lower time frames, just looking at the blueprint, which is broken a significant downtrend, made its first higher high, which breaks the market structure, change of character. Now we'll be looking at where's the next higher low going to be. I don't buy green candles, you know, and I don't sell red candles. I wait for the green candles to finish and then I'll buy on the pullbacks, and the same vice versa. You know, I don't short red candles. I'll wait for green candles, green candles. I'll wait for exhaustion of the buyers. When it hits resistance, that's when it starts losing steam. I'll wait for a break of market structure. I'll do a video on this anyway in the coming days on shorting. I'll wait for a break of market structure, weakness in the charts. That's when I start looking to enter a short. A bit like a lion on the savannah. We're just waiting for weakness, you know, waiting for weakness. We're waiting to seize our moment. A lion will spend, and cheetahs do it, and leopards, they'll spend hours and hours and hours in the same area as their prey, just looking at the prey, you know, and people might think, why aren't they getting it? You know, they're obviously hungry. They're just waiting to seize the moment. You know, us in Sniper Squad on this channel, you know, we're not going to be jumping in after green candles. We're not going to be selling because there's a red candle. We'll be prepared for those events. We'll be prepared. We'll have charts planned. We'll have TA done. And when the market pulls back, we'll be ready. You know, we'll be ready. We'll be ready when Aptos comes to $5. We'll be ready when Sui comes to $2.50. We'll be ready when Solana comes to $120, if it comes to $120. The point is, we'll have things mapped out, charted out, prepared, planned, and we will execute our trades accordingly to make sure that the market, it doesn't matter whether it goes up or down or sideways, we will be prepared, you know, in any eventuality to do what we have to do to make sure that we're profitable, that we have a plan in place, that we protect our dollars. Our little soldiers will be going behind enemy lines on our terms. Not because we're FOMOing in, not because we've seen a green candle and we're getting emotional, not because we don't want to be scared of missing out, because things have come to our levels. It's come to our 382, which is a rising trend line, which is horizontal support, which also correlates with a 50-day previous moving average. Today's been more of an introductory video. It's the first time I've charted properly in a few days and got to grips with the markets, because I've obviously been moving house, like I said earlier on. So it's just been basically getting a feel for what's going on in the markets and where we're at right now. But that's what I'll be waiting for Bitcoin to pop higher and then on the pullback, or to pull back and make a higher low, and that's when I'll start allocating some capital into some swing positions. And tomorrow I might do a live trading session on here, scalping, and show my scalping strategy. But I hope you've enjoyed the video. Like I said, I will leave a link for Sniper Squad under this video, and don't forget to subscribe so you get all my live content and you get involved on these live trading sessions that we'll be doing. And if you want more and more live trading sessions, market analysis, and more scalping strategies, and you know, various different strategies, including a compounding system, and just basic daily market overviews, and lots of other stuff, you know, come and join us in Sniper Squad, because there's a few hundred of us in there waiting for you, and we're going to be getting very, very, very active moving forward. So you don't want to miss out on that. But I do hope you've enjoyed the stream. don't forget to subscribe, give us a thumbs up, leave a comment, and then you won't miss out on future live streams. And I'm going to leave it there. Enjoy the rest of your day, troops, and I look forward to seeing you again very soon.